It was 5:46 in the morning when four federal agents stormed a quiet driveway and pointed a gun at a woman in a business suit. She told them she was a U.S. immigration judge. They laughed and slammed her face onto the concrete anyway. Yeah, that actually happened. The neighborhood was still half asleep, sprinklers ticking, birds not even fully awake yet. And there she was, Judge Denise Owelo, standing beside her car with a leather briefcase in one hand, getting ready for work like she had done thousands of mornings before. Then tires rolled in fast, doors flew open, boots hit pavement, and suddenly the calm snapped like a stick. Don't move. Drop it. Now. The lead agent's voice wasn't cautious or polite, it was sharp, commanding, already convinced she was guilty of something. Denise blinked once, slow, steady, lifted her hands, palms open, and said in the calmest voice you can imagine, "I'm a United States immigration judge. My credentials are in my briefcase." The agent smirked, the kind of smirk people use when they think they've caught someone lying. "Sure you are," he said. And before she could speak again, his partner grabbed her arm, twisted it back, and forced her down. Her knees hit first, then her chest, then her face. Glasses cracking against the driveway with a sound sharp enough that a neighbor later said he heard it from inside his kitchen. Papers spilled from her briefcase across the pavement. Official court dockets, case files, and right on top, plain as daylight, her Department of Justice credential. The lead agent picked it up, glanced at it, and tossed it aside like junk mail. "Fake," he muttered. Across the street, a retired federal marshal named Leonard Abrams was already recording through his window phone, steady voice calm as stone as he dialed 911 and said, "You need local police here right now. Federal agents are assaulting a federal judge in her driveway. She's compliant. No warrant." The whole arrest took less than 3 minutes. 3 minutes to shatter a morning, 3 minutes to humiliate someone who had spent decades serving the law, 3 minutes to set off a chain reaction that would eventually cost careers, reputations, and prison sentences. Now, if you saw Denise that morning, you wouldn't have guessed she was anyone special in the flashy sense. She wasn't loud, she wasn't dramatic, she didn't carry herself like someone who needed attention. She was the kind of person who believed in doing things the right way, even when nobody was watching, the kind of kid who immigrated to America from Nigeria at 9 years old and actually believed her parents when they told her education could change everything. She graduated high school valedictorian, went to Howard on scholarship, then Columbia Law, clerked for a federal appellate judge, spent years defending immigrants who couldn't afford lawyers. And by 40, she was appointed to the bench at one of the busiest immigration courts in the country. 12 years on that bench, reputation, spotless rulings respected by both sides, overturn rate almost non-existent. She lived quietly in Bethesda in the house she once shared with her husband, a Navy veteran who had passed a few years earlier, and she kept to herself, worked hard, minded her business. And on that Wednesday morning, she ended up face down on her own driveway with a knee in her back because a team of agents decided she looked like someone else. The man leading that team was Supervisory Deportation Officer Craig Vanderhook, 15 years in the agency, known for numbers, known for results, known as the guy who could always bring someone in. People above him liked that about him. Numbers make supervisors happy, you know what I mean? They look good in reports, they make budgets easier to justify, they keep promotions flowing. What they didn't like talking about were the complaints. 2 times in 5 years, the Inspector General had flagged him for questionable arrests once, for detaining a legal resident whose paperwork was perfectly valid, once for raiding the wrong address entirely. Both cases quietly closed, no discipline, no fuss. Colleagues noticed patterns but kept quiet because nobody wants to challenge the guy with the best stats and the strongest connections. That morning, he had an operation order for a completely different person. A young man from Guatemala, different name, different age, different everything, but Vanderhook saw Denise in that driveway and decided she fit well enough. So they cuffed her, shoved her into the SUV, didn't read her rights, didn't explain anything, just slammed the door. She sat upright in the back seat, wrists pressed together behind her, voice steady despite the sting in her knees and the scrape on her cheek, and asked, "Who are you looking for?" Silence. She tried again. "I want the name on your order." The driver glanced at her in the mirror and said flatly, "Stop talking or it gets worse." That was the moment she realized this wasn't about a misunderstanding, this was about power. They took her to the field office, walked her through a side entrance, processed her like any detainee. Fingerprints, photo, height chart. And she stood there in a torn suit and cracked glasses and said clearly, "Judge Denise Owalo, Department of Justice." The processing officer froze, mid-typing, looked at her, looked at the screen, then left the room without a word. He came back with a supervisor who typed her name into the system and watched the results populate instantly. Judicial appointment, confirmed credentials, active citizenship, verified. The supervisor's face drained of color. He walked to the holding room, opened the door, and saw her sitting on a metal bench between two detainees, wrists red from cuffs, posture still straight, eyes steady. She looked up at him, and he knew. He uncuffed her herself, hands shaking, and said softly, "Ma'am, I'm deeply sorry." Then he found Vanderhook in the break room eating breakfast and asked, "Do you know who you just brought in?" Vanderhook shrugged. Address matched. Clean grab. The supervisor leaned closer. The address didn't match. The name didn't match. The target is a 28-year-old man. You arrested a 52-year-old federal judge. Vanderhook blinked once and said, "We'll cut her loose. Happens. Happens." That word sat in the air like smoke. Because for Denise, this didn't just happen. This was humiliation, fear, pain, the kind of moment that sticks in your bones. But to him, it was paperwork. After she was released, she didn't yell, didn't cry, didn't threaten. She made calls, precise calls. Chief Immigration Judge, Department of Justice, Inspector General, her lawyer. Within 90 minutes, federal investigators were alerted. By noon, members of Congress were briefed. By evening, people in law enforcement circles were already sharing the neighbor's video. And inside the field office, something shifted, that quiet tension that creeps in when people realize a line's been crossed, and it can't be uncrossed. Vanderhook felt it too, and he did what people like him often do when they know they're in trouble. He tried to fix the story. He pulled his team into a conference room and said they needed to clean up the report, change the address ad language, saying she'd been uncooperative, that she made sudden movements, that force was necessary. Then he told the newest agent, Tina Kowalski, "Your body cam malfunctioned. That's what you'll say." She hesitated. He cut her off. "If you don't back us, you'll be the one holding the bag." What he didn't know was that her camera footage had already uploaded automatically to a federal server under a policy he couldn't override. It captured everything. The shove, the badge tossed on the ground, the comments in the SUV, even him, telling her to lie. 2 days later, investigators arrived and pulled the footage. They watched it start to finish, then compared it to his report line by line. Report said she resisted. Video showed compliance. Report said sudden movement. Video showed raised hands. Report omitted credentials. Video showed him holding them. It unraveled fast. Kowalski cooperated fully once confronted with the evidence. Another agent lawyered up and stayed silent. Vanderhook issued a statement claiming good faith error, but that argument didn't last long once the footage hit the press. When the video aired nationwide, people didn't need commentary. They saw a calm woman in a business suit pinned to concrete while calmly stating who she was. Civil rights groups called it abuse of power. Lawmakers demanded investigations. Protests formed outside field offices. A grand jury convened. Charges followed: civil rights violations, conspiracy, obstruction, falsifying reports. At trial, prosecutors didn't dramatize anything, they just played the recordings. The courtroom watched in silence as Denise was forced down, heard her glasses crack, heard the racial remark inside the SUV, heard the order to falsify evidence. Witnesses testified, the neighbor, the agent, Denise herself, describing the nights she couldn't sleep because every noise outside sounded like boots in her driveway again. The defense tried to argue mistake, but prosecutors displayed the suspect profile next to her photo and let the jury do the math. Verdicts came back quickly, guilty. Sentencing came weeks later. 6 years for Vanderhook, 4 for his partner, 2 for another. Badges gone, careers over. Denise filed a civil lawsuit too, and during discovery records showed a pattern of similar operations that somehow always targeted the same communities, complaints filed and quietly buried. The government settled for millions and agreed to reforms: mandatory warrant verification, automatic body cam uploads, independent oversight. 6 months after the arrest, Denise returned to court. Same briefcase, same walk, new glasses. When she entered the courtroom, every attorney stood without being asked. She nodded once and called the first case like nothing had happened. She never gave interviews, never did press tours. She let the record speak. Quietly, she used part of the settlement to fund scholarships for immigrant law students. Meanwhile, Vanderhook started his sentence in federal prison, never publicly apologizing. And here's the part that sticks with me, the part I can't shake. If that neighbor hadn't recorded, if that camera hadn't uploaded automatically, if nobody had proof, would anything have happened at all, or would it have just been another report filed and forgotten? That's the question I keep coming back to, because systems don't change just because something wrong happens. They change when someone proves it happened. So I want to hear what you think. Was this real justice or just damage control? And have you ever seen someone judged, dismissed, or mistreated because of assumptions people made about them? Tell me in the comments. I read them, and honestly, stories like yours are how conversations like this keep going.